Okay, we've begun recording. If we'd like to call the meeting to order, we can proceed with that now.
Well, it's called to order again. 7:34.
Cool. Thank you.
Get a roll call.
Yep. Paige Anthony, Rosemary Bright, Carol Clement,
Present.
Kate Hayes,
Here.
Grace Shao, Chris Stevie.
Here.
Thank you. We have a quorum. Second item on the agenda. Would you like me to proceed, or you want to?
Yep, please.
Okay. Second item on the agenda is a review and approval of the December 20th draft law and meeting minutes, which I will pull up on my screen in just a moment.
Good. How long is that book?
Which one is that?
The minutes from yesterday's meeting or last meeting should be.
Oh, yeah. It's fairly long. Would you like to go through the sections?
No.
Okay.
Skim through it. I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second the motion.
Seconded by Carol. All in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Nope. Sounds good.
Okay. Item number 3 on the agenda is a review and ratification of the November 1st, 2024 agenda. It was discovered late in December that it had not been correctly posted to the clerk's website. So it's required that we review and ratify that agenda within 30 days of that being discovered, which is today. So we have the agenda. If we'd like to skim through it, I can do so. Otherwise, the materials are available on the DRB website. And a motion for this would be just a simple motion to ratify.
I'll make that motion. Let's motion to ratify the agenda notes as presented.
I'm trying to find where it was. It was the call out of the plant species that was wrong, if I recall correctly.
There's one of the plant species.
Or the acacia, it was just a minor miswording.
No, I thought we took care of that. This is that other clerical error that you guys had, right, Gabriel?
Oh,
Right. This was the post.
Yeah,
On
it was
November
post.
1st.
Yeah, there was a error in how it was publicly posted, right?
Yeah, it didn't make it up to it made it up on the DRB page. It didn't make it to the clerk's website, which is why we have to ratify this post hoc.
And just to
But this-
clarify, Mr. Chair, members of the DRB, the agenda was sent to the clerk's office, and we don't know what happened, but they didn't post it on their website. So it's just a ratification of the agenda itself for that day.
Right. Right. So I'll go back. I'll redo my motion. I'll motion that we ratify and approve this as presented.
Well, I'll second.
Cade with the second. All in favor? Aye.
aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none.
Thank you.
This typically call the audience, right? So
Yep.
there's
Fourth item is
anyone
a
on
call.
this call. Yeah, call the audience, right? If there's anyone on this call that's not associated with the cases at hand or a member of the board, now's your opportunity to address the board. Hearing none. Let's move on to
Proceeding
number
to item-
5.
Yep, proceeding to item 5. This case for the design review package for De Novo Market and Tap was continued to today from December 20th, 2024, due to some issues with the design packet. The design review materials were unavailable at the time of the posting of the agenda. And so we have today we have to make a motion to continue the request to the next meeting scheduled on January 24th, 2025.
I'll make a motion that we continue this case to the next meeting scheduled January 24, 2025.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, sounds like that's continued on.
Okay, item number 6 is review of a design development option application. This is a DDO appeal for a building permit. Mark Castro is here today and can present background information on that. And I don't believe we have the applicant or the person who appealed on the call.
Thanks, Gabriel, Mr. Chair, and members of the board. I did just try to make contact with the appellant, which is Maureen Pollock. Tried her by phone call and email. I'm not able to get a hold of her. I can still go ahead and proceed with a brief summary of the appeal, if that is the board's pleasure.
Yes, please.
Okay. So this case is a DDO appeal by Maureen Pollock, requesting a review of the DDO decision that was to approve some reduced setbacks for this for a workshop and a detached shed. The application was submitted, I would say, back in September, and the director found that the project met the findings for approval, so the DDO was approved for the following setbacks. A side perimeter yard setback reduced from 20 feet to 1 foot 6 inches measured from the workshop to the north property line. A reduced side perimeter yard setback reduced from 20 feet to 4 feet 6 inches measured from the shed to the north lot line, and a reduced rear perimeter yard setback from 20 feet to 8 feet 4 inches measured from the shed to the east lot line. Just to give you a background on this project, these additions were, I should say, the workshop and the shed itself were existing prior to the current property owner taking ownership of the property. He was trying to bring the property, he was doing some work on the property, and a code violation case was opened up due to some complaints about the work being done without permit. The property owner is essentially just trying to keep those improvements that were already done on the property as is. He was not the one who constructed the workshop or the shed. They were existing, again, prior to his ownership. There were no, oddly enough, there were no reports of violation when these structures were built. And it looks like the storage building was there at least since 1998. And then in 2002, that's when you start to see the additional work being done with final, it looks like with the aerial final work done around 2012. The current property owner took ownership of the property around 2022 or 23. So again, a lot of this is already pre-existing before he took over. And again, this is just about the property owner just trying to bring the property into compliance. The appellant is going to point out that there are properties in this neighborhood that do not have reduced setbacks, that they all abide by the 20-foot setback requirement, which is typical for RX1 zone properties and RX2, which is what this property is zoned as RX2. That's pretty much a summary of the request and the background. I am available if you have any questions.
So Mark, do we need to have the appellant present for DRB's consideration?
I don't believe so, but I would at least feel more comfortable if she was present, just so that we can say we gave her the opportunity to make her case before the board. So that would be my preference if we could have her present for that.
And I just want to make sure if she was informed of the meeting today.
Yes.
Okay.
Is there a materials packet with this? The only materials packet I saw was the what we got yesterday, which was the I didn't dig deeper, but we got one yesterday, which was the comments from the neighbors.
Right.
Yeah, we have the decision appeal, that one, and that one. Application packet plan set. Yeah, we got a couple things. We organize this a little better. No, want to keep that one.
But I guess in to the point of the applicant not being here or the appellate, I don't feel comfortable doing this with us just moving through a paper presentation or moving through this information. I guess on our end, just looking at it, there may be nuance to text or graphics provided that.
If it pleases the board, we can continue this one as well to the 24th. I think, let me take a look at the agenda. We're going to have de novo. Then we would have this one. I don't believe we have any other cases scheduled at this point. I suspect de novo. Well, they have a full week, so they could. They'll hopefully be on for the 24th.
Cade, Carol, how are you guys feeling on this? I mean, we could take a skim through the materials and see if there's enough information there, or if we feel like I kind of, I've never been in this spot where we just have a paper package and no one to speak for it.
Yeah, either way, right. I did read through the appellate's comments and other people that were not in favor of this change, the current standing of reducing
Right.
And one comment that stood out to me is that the noise and the busyness of the trucks going in and out, people going in and out of the property was disturbing to her, as well as that the closer the building is set back, it cuts off sort of wildlife corridors. I don't.
I'm sorry, but the purview of the DRB is to I guess support the appellate's request to overturn the
Right.
3 items here. So everything else,
Perimeter.
there could be important concerns, but the purview of the board is simply to vote on the appeal request for these 3 dimensional standards requirements. If there's any other issues like noise, unauthorized uses, stuff like that, that would be the purview of code enforcement, and the appellate would have to pursue those things through those
Oh.
channels. This wouldn't be the venue to kind of make a decision based on, passage of wildlife or anything like that. And like Mark said, these have been there for quite some time, much longer
Right.
than the
Gabriel,
DDO application.
But Gabriel, please give us some background on if we're going to appeal or give a decision on an appeal of a DDO, the criteria to be approved for a DDO is important. And in my experience, a DDO is very similar to getting a variance. And the criteria for a variance need to be proven that they fit into those. But a DDO is a slightly reduced criterion. I think some of those ideas that Carol just brought in become part of the problem or part of the conversation when you start asking about, is this condition created by the site or created by owner, like the criteria for the DDO. So it isn't just about space and where that shed is currently. There's other criterion that need to be evaluated, and I think
Same
we need
criteria.
we need to move back. We need to go back into that. Like, if we're going to appeal a decision, we need to understand why that decision was approved.
I can.
Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Like why they were saying that
Right.
the criteria that were used to say, yes, this meets the threshold to have an approval of a DDO.
Okay.
And
If you
for
like,
us to say it didn't, we need to know what those are.
right.
Yeah, so Mr. Chair, members of the DRB, so Mark, feel free to kick in, but it's been a while since I've done a DDO appeal, but basically would be the
A couple
same,
years.
the same criteria that the Board of Adjustment will consider. Is that correct, Mark? And I lost Mark.
I'm
It's
sorry.
early and it's chilly. He's back.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm actually on the phone with the appellant, so just give me a few minutes. I'm finding out what's going on.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah. Thanks,
Sorry.
Mark.
Okay.
We'll chit chat.
Yeah, I have another question. What is the workshop going to be used for? What is going to be done what are the activities that will be performed inside the workshop?
Well, that's right, Carol. Before we even go down these roads,
I know.
that's what I want to know is
Yeah.
I need a refresher on what the criteria to have a DDO approved are, so that
And I
we
think
don't
that's something
spend
that
time wondering about use changes, or because it sounds like there was a use change, but that's not part of the DDO, might not be part of the DDO criterion.
Okay.
Right. So a
Okay.
DDO is to modify dimensional standards, right? And
Correct.
a DDO can't be used to alleviate a hardship created by the applicant. I can't split a lot into a lot that's only like 15 feet wide and then get a
Right.
DDO because my building has to be close to the edges of the lot.
Mhm.
If I happen to own a lot that's a little wonky, then that would be that's more in line with what the DDO is for.
Right. In my experience, DDO, majority of DDO cases that I've been involved in or had on this board were screening and like this offsets and landscape border adjustments.
Yeah.
Right.
But
And I
there
believe
are
the
Mike-
immediate neighbors were kind of supportive of the request.
Well, I read several objections to it. There were several objections as well.
I mean, the neighbors adjacent to the subject property.
Yeah, I think
Yeah, did they-
I went through a DDO a little over a year ago, and any neighbor could comment, but it was the neighbors I think that diagram and the package is showing the neighbors that are adjacent to the property. If they approved it, it was all that really mattered, even though we had to present it to the whole neighborhood.
Right,
Correct.
so the notification area is 100 feet, and
Yeah.
yeah, Mark can go into details, but I believe the neighbors within 100 feet were broadly supportive of the DDO
Okay.
request.
That's correct.
My concern is, okay, let's say this workshop is used for metal making and he's going to be forging or plasma cutting or cutting metals. And I know from my experience of living here in Savannah, when you have essentially zero lot lines, you have to build firewalls. Your building has to be a firewall and windows need to be fire rated for 1 hour. I don't know if this is our purview to address this, but it just gives me concern and I don't know what to do about it.
I think your fire one is being addressed on the sheet that Gabriel has up right there. I don't know if it fully, complies, but it seems like
I
he's
don't
trying.
This has to be code compliant for
Yeah,
the fire
approval.
rating based on the location of the wall. And
Yeah.
so this is a requirement by our building department and plans reviewers and inspectors who go out on the site to verify that the construction is proceeding according to the plans or that the as-built accurately reflect what is on site for an existing structure. So this provides for a firewall on the plan set. If we have an inspector go out and it's like it's made of studs and watered up oily rags, and they're going to address that on the site, and that'll need to be remediated to the conditions shown on the as-built before that can be approved.
Right.
So-
There's a whole nother set of conditions that are applied to this
Okay.
project. If we say it's okay for it to even exist in this location, see that's the end of our purview, Carol. I think is that we need to just say yes, this
Okay.
can exist in this position, and then fire and safety and all those other teams come in and say, okay, if it's okay to exist in this condition, here's the conditions that it needs to be built to, or the firewalls, egress, electricity, outlets on the walls, all that air and solar and all that kind of stuff is it comes in under building department. We're just here to say, yeah, that it can even exist in this location, right? So
and this was approved by the plans reviewers and the building reviewers in their permit application for the structures.
Yeah.
So everything in here is demonstrated in the plans as being fully code compliant, including properly running circuits to the workshop, panel capacity, fire ratings, all those things are already right.
Sorry, I missed that. Okay.
Oh, it's okay. No, it's just, these don't come up a lot, so it's always good to cover, where these responsibilities lie. And as far as like
this
a workshop,
or not the applicant, but the owner of the property is actively improving this space from a prior construction, which was not up to code, right? Is that a little more of the background? Like this framing and walls were not built to current building standards. So this client was improving it to standards, and
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's correct. And there was actually some additional work that just had to be torn down because it was just not repairable, or it was just too dilapidated. So what you're seeing in those photos there is a result of some removal. As you can see, some of the paint on the walls there on the facade. Yeah, there was structures there like a porch that was taken down, just not code compliant and not worth the money to save. So what you're seeing there is just trying to improve the site, make it more compliant with code.
And you are allowed to have like workshops or forges, and obviously you have to be considerate to neighbors. And if there's issues with noise or noxious fumes or excessive outdoor storage visible from the right of way, those again are the purview of code enforcement if the neighbors were disturbed enough to make that complaint.
Right, right. So the zoning allowed, I mean, you can have a workshop it as an accessory use to the residential use of the property, right? As long as it's not commercial related, if you're not running a business out of it or anything like that, you're fine as long as what Gabe said is that you're being respectful of your neighbors, kind of just, tone it down a little bit, not make it more commercial. But yeah, that's where code enforcement, as Gabriel mentioned, that and there is an open case, just so you know, a code violation case. So they still have to deal with that. They still have to go to court, and the appellant has the opportunity to talk about all the other things that are new that she considers a nuisance to the neighborhood. That'll
Right.
be addressed in court. In this case, we're really this is just a piece of the puzzle. This is just the zoning issue what we're reviewing for, and it's just really the building setback that was existing before the property owner took over. So that's what this is really all about.
So Mark, is the appellant able to join in today?
She is not actually. She just checked out of our hotel in Flagstaff, so she's actually on her way back. She didn't realize it was today. She apologizes, but she does request that she be able to speak before the DRB and is requesting the continuance to the 24th.
Okay.
And Mr. Chair, members of the DRB, about the criteria that the DRB needs to review, which is the same criteria the PDSD director needed to review for the DDO application. It's on that attachment B of the agenda. I believe Gabriel was displaying
And
it
we
right
also,
now.
well, this is right out of the UDC. So the appeal has to be based on the same criteria, and the criteria per the code is it's laid out right here. And we can go through it through the code and review what the director's criteria are, is, if you like, if we want to use this time up today and then continue this to the 24th.
I'd actually, knowing that Mark had contact with this applicant, and that they would like to have their opportunity to be here, I'd like to have all conversation be publicly with them in the room, so to speak, if I can. So I'd like to just move to continue this out and move on.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not clear on where I can read those conditions prior to the meeting on the 24th. Okay, so I would go to the UDC section 3.11.1.
And it should be on the agenda, right, Gabriel?
Okay.
It's on attachment
so
B.
that information, it's on the last page of the agenda. I've got a
Okay.
direct link to this section of the code in the Teams chat as well,
Great.
if you want to follow that there.
Yeah, thank you. I will do so.
Okay, so we've had a motion to continue this item to 1/24/25. If members of the board, anyone would like to second that motion?
I'll second it.
Those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Sounds we're gonna carry that to next meeting.
Excellent.
One quick question for Mark. Mark, do we need to have also at the meeting the DDO applicant?
No, we don't need to, but he can certainly join. It's his option if he wants to join. I would assume that he would want to be there.
Okay, so he was also informed of today's meeting?
I'll reach out to him to make sure. I think Georgia was was reaching out to him, so I'll just follow up and make sure that he's aware of the 24th meeting.
Okay,
But
Right.
Maria, as far as like points of order in our meeting, that person would not be part of the application. They would just be part of the audience, right? I don't want to get in a. I don't want to open up the opportunity for a argument to happen here in real time in front of us.
Right. So
Understood.
the call to the public, that's for items that aren't being discussed in the agenda. So any discussion on the DDO request would be held under that. And if it helps, staff can assist in moderating that discussion so it doesn't go off the rails. We can use
Mark,
some
what's-
teams
what's your
That's
tools.
not a typical.
What's your
That's not a
experience with
typical
the
format for us. For us to
Right.
have two people on a, like, it's usually an applicant for their project representing their project. If this is in a, yeah, I don't know what the format we can handle for that is.
So if the zoning examiner meeting from last night goes up on YouTube, it was contentious. If you want to get a sense of how that might look, but if anyone's disrespectful or not yielding time so somebody can present their point, we can certainly use the tools and teams to step in and help moderate that so it doesn't devolve into just an argument. We would do our best to make sure that the discussion has some structure.
Right. I know
That
we
certainly helps
tend to
with the
run our
law.
meetings a little less formally. You know, we don't follow Robert's rules and
Yeah.
call to orders and all these other things to the T, right? But having, I'm not a judge, and this board is not a judge or a jury. You know, I don't think I'm even. I don't want to be setting us up to, well, this is what they say. Okay, what's your counter argument to this? Like, we're looking at facts and paper and criterion, whether it meets these criterion or not. And I don't necessarily feel comfortable with what we're starting to talk about.
Right. And we can go down the list and just go through the specific criteria. We can review the list now and not do it in not.
I mean, we already pushed this case to the next.
Yeah,
like,
it's already
sounds
been.
good.
I don't want to do
Yeah.
I don't want to do any technical
Right.
fact finding on this case at this point. It was more procedural, like what we're gonna allow and not allow in our next meeting.
So, Mr. Chair, members of the DRB, I think, we need to inform the applicant anyway, right?
Right.
The appeal is taking place. It's up to the applicant to attend. If they decide to attend, then Mark, I'm gonna ask you to advise and, just to maybe offer answers if the DRB reaches out for questions.
Right. I'll let him know that he's really there to answer questions from that the DRB may have that the appellant
Right.
may not necessarily know. That's because this really is this is really an opportunity for the appellant to make
Right.
her case.
Right.
The time
Right.
for discussions between those who are objecting and those who don't have any objections is going to be at the Board of Adjustment public hearing. And that will be his opportunity where he can tell the board, where they can discuss and have that conversation. But the DRB is solely just making a recommendation based on what they find in their review of the findings for this case. So I'll make it clear to him
Right.
that he's really just there to answer questions if anything comes up.
If he chooses to attend.
If he chooses to attend, yeah.
Mhm. Okay, thank you.
Right. So our purview really is just to determine whether or not I'm going to use the wrong words, may or may not have been an error in that decision. It's not.
That's correct.
I don't really have much opinion on others' opinions about what should be done. It's just we're trying to determine whether or not there was a misinterpretation of the criterion.
Right. And we can cover the specific criteria at the next DRB meeting and just go down the list.
Yeah.
And I think
So
maybe Gabriel
so
and Maria, this might be on you guys at that next meeting if those folks are there to maybe lay those guidelines out
Right.
we're not there to make determination on change of use or trucks or whether this guy's using this space as a commercial business. We are solely there to determine whether or not the Board of Adjustments made or the zoning administrator may or may not have made a error in their decision.
I'll put
That
some
might
notes
help
in there,
quell
and
some
we'll,
of the conversation.
yeah, we'll go over the
Maria,
specific guidelines.
Okay,
Carol, I
good.
think I
I
cut you
think
off.
that's a good idea.
Were you going to say something, Carol? I think I cut you off.
No, no, no. I was just saying, I think that's a good idea. So actually, full transparency, everyone's who wants to be there will hear the criteria altogether. I think that's a great idea.
And Mark, I'm gonna forward the appointment for the 24th to Pollack Maureen. Okay,
Yeah, she's the
appellant.
appellant.
Okay.
Yes, thank you, Maria.
Mhm.
All right. Well, it sounds like we all have some reading and some paperwork to look at
Mm-hmm.
before next meeting, and or if we get that that market.
Yeah, De
Case
Novo
back.
Market.
Novo
Yeah,
market.
we got a design package in this week. It's going to require some more fine tuning before we bring it back to the board.
We've seen that case prior, right?
Yeah.
It was one where the railing didn't match the columns, and there wasn't really a lighting diagram, and
Oh, yeah, for the Transamerica building.
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
And I did find those planters, the palm trees that were in them. I believe from the 60s when they built the building. And I made this determination in a fun way by reviewing archival footage from the movie Stir Crazy.
That's great. You know, I thought about, just as a passing comment, I thought about those plans that they have for that building. I wish we would have recommended that they replant the palms, the Washingtonias back in, even though they were removed. We don't know how they were removed, but those palms were great. They were appropriate for the building. But oh well.
So they're going to be coming back on the 24th potentially, and so any kind of conditions or recommendations like that can be made when they return.
Okay.
Any announcements from you guys?
I do have more than an announcement, a request. I was contacted by Rosemary Bright. She had let me know she was gonna serve with the DRB till the end of 2024 because she was taking a new job with Pima County.
Right.
She's now settled in, and she let me know that Pima County allowed her to keep serving with
good.
the DRB. Yeah. So, however, she was asking me if the DRB would consider changing the meeting time from 7:30 to 8:30, not just for her, but for other potential architects and contractors that she's talking to who have children in school, because it's a bit difficult for her to manage, dropping off kids at school and be able to attend DRB.
It was
So
hectic here this morning.
so she was asking if the DRB would consider changing the times from 7:30 to 8:30. And I know we don't have all DRB members here, but I promised her I would pose the question today.
And we can add that as an agenda item on the meeting on the 24th.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, I don't have any challenges with that, Maria.
Neither do I. I would be okay, but we can discuss that on the 24th, I guess.
I feel the same.
Okay. So
None of
we'll
my
see
joints work this early.
So we'll include it in the agenda, and hopefully we'll have a page, and I forgot her name already.
Grace.
You know, Grace, thank you. Chime in and go from there.
Maria, with I guess just the logistics of that within our working, how notifications and all that stuff, would we have to do any formal changes on your side or our side to make that happen if we decide to do that? We just change the way we post the notices, right? That there's nothing else we need to do.
And we would need to inform the clerk's office.
Correct. All right.
But
I think that was a holdover. The 7:30 time is a holdover from when we used to meet in person, and we wanted to try to squeeze in the meeting before a normal work day. But I've switched jobs since that started, and my schedule is much more flexible for this meeting to happen later in the day.
Sounds good. Yeah, I had several applicants in the past come forward wanting to serve, but same issue, right? School.
Yep.
And so that would be great if we could change it just to open up the doors a little bit more.
Yeah.
Cool, and we'll add it to the agenda then for January 24th.
Sounds good. Thank you.
And then let's add to the agenda those other talking points that we wanted to address, that we were tentatively going to address this week. But depending on how that other case goes, I have a feeling that case might be a long one, the DDO one. But we were going to discuss, I guess, even things we were talking about now, the meeting agenda and pacing. And then there was another item we were gonna address. I'm blank in my head right now.
Yeah, I've got a note on there for the procedures and timeliness, and we'll add a specific agenda item for that. And I think things like DDO appeals, they won't have to go very long if we just stick to the checklist and use the specific criteria for that appeal.
Okay.
Oh, the other item I just remembered was we were going to have or see if Maria, you and Gabriel with staff could see about, we were going to have a discussion about shade and how we determine shade criterion for projects like the one we had last meeting, where it's a piece of a larger project. Like if there's
right.
If it's a larger development, like they're claiming like, well, the whole GCC is a project, not just this piece. But we've had that come up a couple times. So
I think one of the challenges with that too is that the so shade studies, the 12 o'clock noon on the 21st requirement is, I think, from 2023. And so if somebody's citing a shade study from 2020, it's going to be for a different time of day.
Right. We brought that up. That was part of the discussion we were having in that case. And so I think maybe a determination from the city or from
the one? Is that the one for the Sosa Carrillo? The
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I think it was relevant to that, and it's relevant to the de novo and others.
Yeah, even Novo Market too, right? Like they're like overall shade on that project.
The Sosa Carrillo,
it's come up more than once.
Yeah, the Sosa Carrillo is pretty clear. The Sosa Carrillo was not part of the campus, the TCC campus proposal back then, 2-3 years ago. And so this was new development within the TCC campus, and new development is to comply with current code.
And the board did make a condition for them to meet that 50% on site at the last meeting. And so we're still waiting on updated design materials so that staff can verify that condition.
Yeah, now the Novo, and Mark, since you're here, correct me if I'm wrong. New development has to comply with code for that portion of the development. Is that correct? You don't need to bring the entire property up to code. So the question is, this is in the Transamerica building, you know, the code reads for the site, right? 50% for the site. So the east sidewalk is being shaded by the building, but the southern sidewalk is not.
Right.
Well, at noon, yeah, the shadow's 810 northwest. So it makes this location particularly challenging. And so there's a balance of shade requirements, there's a balance of what is an appropriate landscaping, I guess, scheme for the site. And those have to be weighed against each other. But in some cases, you know, big intersection, southeast corner, there's already some like feasibility challenges with meeting shade requirements on the public sidewalk, just because that's the way the sun points.
So we'll consult with the zoning administrator. I'll CC you, Mark, just for your knowledge. But let's consult with the zoning administrator to see what actually applies in terms of shade requirements for this specific case.
I think the other end of it, Maria, was even on Carrillo, we made a condition on that, you know, they were doing some of these big plaza areas out of organic material and not out of hard paving. You know, so they were using compacted decomposed granite to create these large plaza spaces that were intended for gathering. And if we had really held them to this criteria of 50% shade on the site, they would have had to pepper it with trees, and it kind of defeats the purpose and design intent. So we need to determine a way for us to give ourselves a variance for some of these criteria on specific projects, I think. And
that has been done in the past, Mr. Chair, members of the DRB. I believe, like, I'm trying to remember in cases, you know, where we have a historic structure and we have right-of-way limitations and space, you know, infrastructure and such. So the DRB, considering the limitations of the site and historic preservation standards, has been okay with the provision of less than 50% shade. And then the PD, because of the site restrictions, right? And that so the PDSD director takes your recommendation and makes the final decision.
And I'll do some research in the interim on, I'll look into the code and see if there are any specific provisions for modifying standards like that.
In our criterion, right?
Yeah.
Or, like, you know, I mean, that leads to, you know, how much flexibility do we have in these? Because a lot of them are yes or no's, you know, and or at least traditionally we've handled it as yes or no. But we are, you know, a board, and we have, you know, the human element. So we've always had a little flexibility, but it seems like shade's the one that we've always held hard on. And maybe we're looking to maybe relieve that a little bit. And I think that the big one with like Carrillo that Swaim and ARC were bringing to the table is that portion of the property is part of a larger PAD, which provides some zoning relief. And their point, I think, is well taken, that if they're afforded zoning relief for other things on the PAD, this is all part of the PAD. You know, it's all part of one package, and it's a tough call on my. You mean, they're starting to talk about like bridges. You know, you know, we held that Bass Pro Shop to some strong criterion, even though they were part of a larger PAD. You know, so
right. It's
being part of the PAD doesn't relieve you, but I just want to get a little more research on your guys' end and see where we can land on that as a group.
So I've got it in my notes now to do some research on modifying decision criteria. I mean, my sense is that you guys can make minor modifications in areas where strict adherence isn't feasible. But I'll look through the code and I'll confirm with the zoning administrator or the director and I'll get a more concrete answer so that the board has that information moving forward.
Right, because technically we are an advisory board to the zoning administrator, correct?
To the director.
To the director, right? So
Okay.
where
Is the,
we make a determination, Carol, right? Like we make a determination of like what we recommend, and de facto they use that as their criterion to make their judgment, but they don't have to.
right,
And I would like to have at least make a, so in this whole talking point I'm making is about, I want to make sure everyone across the line or down the line understands a decision or how we're making those decisions. So
Right.
that they don't have a reason to say, well, you guys shouldn't be lenient on that.
right,
Or
yeah,
why can't
Is-
you be more lenient on that, right?
right. Is the Korea Sosa building coming back to us? I can't remember, or are they just moving ahead?
It's not. So you guys made a condition for the 50% shade requirement on site, and it was decided that staff would verify that condition was met on the resubmittal. So when they come back with an updated design package, as long as the conditions of the motion are met, we'll go ahead and just approve it based on the meeting we had.
Yeah, I think, Carol, part of our criteria was if they find they can't meet that 50% as we defined it, that they come back to us with
Right.
we couldn't do it.
Right. Well, it was very interesting. I went to the Nutcracker Ballet, and I walked around to the south side of the Ronstadt Music Hall, and there were hundreds of people standing outside the building, all crowded onto the sidewalk, where if the plaza area that was proposed by Swaim was lit and accessible, it would be a beautiful gathering space for attendees to meet with the performers.
Right. It's a great little improvement to that space, which is totally janky currently. So
Yeah, but Swaim's current design doesn't really open it up to that idea. I don't think they have the full accessibility from that side. I'll have to check.
I thought there was a little bit of a grading issue with that. They had to bring walkways in or something, Carol, right? Like they did walkway from.
Yeah, we need to check
point
on
of-
that. I wish
Yeah.
It was
sometimes
like a
that,
cul-de-sac. So the plaza was kind of a cul-de-sac on the site, and then so one of the
Most-
entries pedestrian was from the north, and then the south entry
Was-
from the site was from the middle of the site, so it was kind of a dog leg through it.
Yeah.
but it wasn't big and welcoming. The big welcoming access was from the west, if I recall correctly. But anyway,
So I
it's
don't believe
so
we can have a lot of
interesting.
discussion on this if it wasn't an agenda item. If the board would like, we can add that to the 124 agenda and request the
No,
applicant come back.
they're gonna come back to us, right? That's what I
No,
understood.
they're not. They're not. No.
They're not.
As long as
No.
they're meeting the shade
Okay.
requirements or giving us
They're
a
gonna
darn
move
reason why they
forward,
can't,
right.
then yeah, we'll go ahead and move it forward and approve the package.
How,
And Gabriel, just for point of order here, this is an anecdotal conversation about
Yeah.
that happens to revolve around a prior project. It's not technical talk about a prior decision.
Right. I
so
was just offering the
Yeah,
option.
I'll just put that in the minutes.
how, can I ask city people, how appropriate or inappropriate would it be for me to reach out to Swaim and talk as a citizen, just a regular citizen who observed these things at the Nutcracker? How am I overstepping boundaries as a member of the DRB, or can I just reach out to the architect Swaim guy and share my thoughts of what I observed that night?
I mean, the item is closed. We don't
We're
have
done with
a,
that case, Carol.
yeah, we don't have a decision letter signed and approved yet. I would just out of an abundance of caution, probably wait until after that DRB design
Yeah.
application is completely closed.
Well, it doesn't seem
That's
very
just my
efficient.
personal thing. I don't know if that's not a guideline.
You know, in consideration of the architect and the time required, it might be helpful for him, her to have that information prior to final. You know, it was sort of startling to me that that space might be better implemented.
Right, but
Uh,
if they're still waiting on that to continue, I don't. My
Okay,
sense is that wouldn't be.
I wouldn't
We'll
recommend
go in
it,
and make
though.
additional recommendations like offline.
Even as a citizen, but I know
Right.
it's like I'm wearing both hats at one time. Okay, I will.
Yeah, so I mean, if there's a zoning examiner case near me, and I work in entitlements, and there has been right in the past with apartment complexes, I can't. It would be inappropriate for me as staff who works with those to go in and weigh in on that in even a personal capacity. And I would just caution, I wouldn't do anything that might be construed as a recommendation prior to that case being completely closed. So if they do that, that's cool. If not, then we can't put that worm in their ear before they do the
Okay.
work. Yeah. But so I have some items for scheduling for the next time at this point. We'll get that agenda posted to the clerk's website now that it's been ratified, and staff will do some research prior to the next meeting on code provisions, or we'll get some feedback from the zoning admin or the director on how much flexibility the board has in altering design criteria.
Correct. Yeah, let's not limit it just to the shade one. Let's figure out all of them.
Yep.
General
Yeah, I
topic
mean-
like that. That's good. I think.
And with that, I don't have any more announcements. I don't know, Maria or Mark, if you guys have any announcements, I guess that would be the time.
No, looks like we're on to number 8.
Yeah,
8:31.
there we go.
Virtual
Wow.
gavel. Kabang. We are adjourned.
1 hour.
Right on.
Heck
Thank
yeah.
you so
And we
much,
didn't even hear a
everybody.
case.
All right, Maria, I'm going to stop the recording now.
Yes, please.
Find where the record, stop recording.